Call this meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Please remain standing for a moment of silent prayer for our servicemen and women throughout the world and for all of those who have passed away in our community. Roll call, please.
Mr. Perry? Mr. Donahue?
Here.
Attorney Dempsey?
Here.
Mr. Gahan?
Here.
Mr. Rogan?
Here.
I would like to make a motion to take from the table file of the council number 74, 2019.
Second.
On the question, this piece is being taken from the table previously placed in seventh order for a final vote. It was previously tabled to comply with a 30-day public comment period as required by HUD. Anyone who wishes to speak on this piece of legislation should do so during citizens' participation. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it and so moved.
I would like to make a motion to take from the table resolution number 167, 2019.
Second.
On the question, this piece is being taken from the table and placed in seventh order for a final vote. This concerns the contract with Barry Izett and Associates for the City of Scranton's Licensing and Permits Department assessment. Anyone who wishes to speak on this piece of legislation may do so in fourth order. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
The ayes have it and so moved.
I'd like to make a motion to table item 7C.
Sir,
Second.
on the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it and so moved. Please dispense with the reading of the minutes.
Third order, 3A, minutes of the Scranton Redevelopment Authority meeting held October 16, 2019. 3B, tax assessors results reports for hearing dates held October 30 and November 6, 2019. 3C, minutes of the Civil Service Commission meeting held September 19, 2019. 3D, check received from Comcast in the amount of $252,825.42 for quarterly franchise fee. 3E, minutes of the Ethics Board regular meeting held October 24, 2019. 3F, minutes of the regular meeting of the members of Scranton Housing Authority held October 7, 2019. 3G, agenda for the Board of Zoning Appeals meeting held November 13, 2019. And 3H, single tax office financial statements for the year ended December 31, 2017.
Are there any comments on the third order items? If not, received and filed. Do any council members have announcements at this time?
Yes, I just have one statement I'd like to make. I usually would reserve this for fifth order, but I just want to take a second at the top of the meeting to mention something about the retirement of our city controller, Roseanne Novembrino. When I first got involved in politics back in 2013, Mrs. Novembrino was one of the first people that was willing to take the time and talk with me. As a city controller, her door was always, and I mean always, open. You didn't need an appointment, you didn't need to send an email, and you certainly did not need to make a phone call. As city controller, she was the epitome of what a good public servant should be. Always willing to take the time, answer questions, and listen to people. We often talk in these chambers and across the city about how important it is for public servants to be selfless. Well, Mrs. Novembrino was just that. Time after time, she could have received a raise in that position, but she turned it down time after time. She always looked out for every single one of her employees who held her in the highest regard, and I know that from talking with some of them over the last few years and just in the last few days, and she always did what was best for this city. She was and still is revered in this building and across the city for her decades of service that she gave to Scranton. You will not find a kinder, more compassionate, dedicated person than Roseanne Novembrino, and I want to wish her well in her retirement. I want to wish her well with her health, and I want to thank her for all that she has done, and her family should be very proud of her service to the city. Thank you.
Anyone else? A couple announcements. Next Monday at 5:15 PM, a public hearing will be held for the city's 2020 operating budget. Also next week, the week of November 25th through the 30th, newspapers will not be picked up. DPW employees will be picking up leaves next week. Bagging of leaves is suggested. Leaf bags are free for residents and may be picked up at DPW headquarters on Poplar Street or at the Weston Firehouse or on Providence Road. Again, leaves will be picked up, not newspapers, the week of November 25th.
Fourth order, citizens' participation.
Our first speaker tonight is Mayor Wayne Evans.
Good evening, Council. And Councilman Gahn, thank you very much for the remarks about Mrs. Novembrino. We all know she was something special, and she was the epitome, as you said, of a true public servant. And I have all the respect for her, and I hope she finds good health in the remainder of her time. But as you know, you have a lot of important items on your agenda, and of course the budget is up for first reading tonight. But tonight I'm here for a completely different reason. Sometimes we have to take time from our busy schedules to remember what is truly important. So if I may, I'd like to take a moment, as I have these last few years, to remember and honor Bob McGough. It will be 4 years ago tomorrow, November 19th, that our friend and colleague Bob McGough lost his battle with cancer. And I would like to read again his words that he spoke right here in these chambers from his seat as City Council President as he fought his battle in public in front of all of us. Bob said, "Just one thing I'd like to mention. I would like to say that I know all of us have been affected by this insidious disease. And I would encourage anyone that knows someone who is fighting this or dealing with treatments involved with cancer, be a friend. One of the things that happens to cancer patients and those under treatment, depression is a very significant aspect to it. And believe it or not, simply sitting down and talking with people, watching a television program, bringing dinner, and having something to eat with them goes a long way to helping people deal with that. And I would just encourage that if you know someone, please be a friend and be part of the helping process. Bob McGough is someone who understood the importance of even the smallest gesture, someone we will always respect and admire, and his words are worth remembering once again in his honor and memory. So please be a friend. Thank you, and have a great meeting.
Thank you. Les Spindler?
Hello, Council. Les Spindler, city resident, homeowner, taxpayer. I too want to wish Roseanne the best of health in her retirement, and I've known Roseanne for many, many, many years. And Councilman Gahn, I agree with everything you said. She's just a wonderful person. I really can't say any more than you did. You said it all, but I've known her for many, many years, and just a wonderful person. I wish her a good retirement and good health in her retirement. Okay, now with the budget. I was very happy to see that the garbage fee came down $50. I'm not 100% satisfied. I don't think we should have it at all, but I guess that's a step in the right direction. My question is, does that mean we're not going to get a discount anymore? Or is there still going to be a discount if you pay it early?
So the discount goes away. It's going to be $250 across the board now, billed as part of the taxes.
One more thing. I don't think it should be in with the property taxes because I think, for me anyway, I have a double, so I have to pay two. But I think the first payment was due at the end of May, so now it's going to be due earlier.
Well, you only have to pay one now, so you only pay one bill. It's $250 per building.
Yeah, but I pay my property taxes, I think it's before February, because then you get a discount with that.
So it would be due with the property taxes. I'm not sure how the discount would apply regarding this component. I don't think there would be a discount on the garbage fee component, but we'd have to check with the tax office on that.
All right, that's all I have, thank you.
Thank you. John Bravo?
Hello again. John Bravo, Houdini Museum, Scranton, Pennsylvania. I want to thank you all for taking the time to listen to me last week and this week. Possibly because of City Council's help, I'm going to have to read this. Help with our fine and case. Our case was dropped when we were brought up to the magistrate by the city this past week. It was dropped with no input whatsoever from us behind closed doors, though we still, to the best of our knowledge, do not have a permit or ability to get our leaks fixed. One of the things that helped Mayor Courtwright in his illegal pay-to-play schemes and our problem to get our roofs fixed was the well-meaning Ordinance 63/2016 passed during his time in office, which began in 2014. This added another level of difficulty or impossibility for property owners who wanted to get a permit for work on their property. Prior to this, any owner of a property could get a permit for repair of their property, subject to codes, inspection, insurance, and licensed workers. This is common around the country. I have done this multiple times over the past 30 years, which we have many building permits that I was able to get. This new ordinance meant businesses who needed to work done could not deal direct, but had to go through a contractor who would then hire the same licensed workers to do the work. And the work that I did over the 30 years as a contractor took this building to what the Houdini Museum looks like today. I completely renovated it as a contractor being able to pull all the permits. As Courtwright realized, Scranton businesses is where the money is. This ordinance advanced Courtwright's pay-to-play schemes by putting another level of bureaucracy, difficulty, and control as to businesses getting permits for repair, a system that still exists today, although he is gone. If one drives around the city of Scranton today, there are hundreds, possibly thousands, of small businesses, most that are in converted homes, many which are simple mom-and-pop operations, as ours is. Many are just small houses, some with living quarters on the ground or upper floors. In many ways, they make up most of the infrastructure of the city's commerce. They are now faced with the impossible hurdle of not being able to get a permit or find a contractor that is willing to work in the city where it is often impossible even for them to get a permit. This is why Courtwright was able to collect money under the table for permits for which he is now going to jail because of an FBI investigation. Many contractors and licensed workers now refuse to take work in the city. You are in danger of destroying this important part of the city's infrastructure. Where a case could be made for more stringent requirements for multi-million-dollar buildings, it is devastating for the little guys. You should make it easier for these small businesses to repair their buildings, not more difficult or expensive, so they don't get run down. The ordinances should be changed so that small buildings, say under $1 million or $500,000 in value, would refer back to the standard that is common in most communities around the country, where the owner is able to get a permit to have the work done as it was in Scranton before 2016. This ordinance helped advance Mayor Courtwright and the rest of his cronies to set up his horrendous pay-to-play schemes. Your city has made it impossible for us to fix a clear and present danger to our building and its contents that is in serious need of protection and repair. A search for the Houdini Museum Scranton, PA on Google, they say, and I quote, "Guests to this converted home receive a guided tour through Houdini memorabilia. Owners should be able to get a permit to fix a wide-open roof leak in 24 hours or the instant it occurred, possibly permit or not. Currently, the building is still in danger with an ongoing roof leak. When it rains outside, it rains inside. It endangers our antiques and collectibles. It is over 10 weeks now. By the way, we have $2 million liability insurance ourselves. The only choice for us and other small businesses under this system is to look to move out of this city. We can make ourselves available should you want to pursue this further. Please help. Respectfully, John Bravo. And then I have the information down below about the code, and it has a lot of run-on sentences.
Thank you.
I'd like to pass this to you
If you could leave that, we'll be happy to take a look. And we actually are voting on legislation tonight that will look to start to make some changes in the licensing and inspections office. I know the particular piece you're talking about as well, and we'll have much more discussion on that. So, thank you.
Thank you. The faster, the better. Thank you kindly.
Dorothy Dietrich?
Hello, council. Thank you for last week listening to our problem, and this week I feel more hopeful, because I did, after speaking with you folks, it seems like we're getting some progress. However, the gentleman that we originally contracted with, who is licensed with the city of Scranton, Harry Bradshaw, he seems very gun-shy to do the project without some kind of permit. So he's been trying to get a hold of Tammy Lynn in the permit office without success. So I spoke to her today, and she said she would reach out to him and see if she can get that taken care of. In her statement to us was that no building should be at risk of having water damage. It doesn't make any sense. So I don't know if there is anything that she can do with a permit, or if there's some kind of exception they can make for this kind of instance. Until you do, thank you. If you can change the laws to go back the way they were, it made sense, because the business owner, like, we know a lot of people in the city, and we know people that are good. If they have a license, they should be able to do the work and be able to get a permit. What held this one back desperately for us was that we were told that you had to get a commercial contractor, which, not just a contractor, a licensed contractor, you had to get a commercial contractor. And they are not interested in a small repair job. So that will make it difficult for any business to do a repair job. They're looking for a major contract. And so thank you for all your help and anything that you can do to change those laws to make it doable for folks. Because I know people that are in business, you don't want anything to run down. And so thank you.
Thank you. Joan Hodawanitz?
Joan Hodowanitz, 101 Penn Avenue, Scranton. Please answer these in fifth order, because you see I have 2 pages, and I want to at least get them out. I need to know the status of the MS4 permit, whether that's a done deal, and the status of the independent audit. You said in caucus that the draft is due on December 1st. I think that's unacceptably late when the engagement letter said it was deliverable on September 30th. And we should have had some information from the auditor long before now as to why it is so late. And I did take a cursory look at the 2020 budget, and I have many questions. I don't know why people ask me these questions, but I'm going to throw them back in your lap. On the refuse fee, my understanding from looking at the budget and reading the newspaper is that's going to be folded back into real estate taxes late in 2020. And then I saw in the paper an item about in 2021 you're considering a pay-as-you-throw per bag concept. And I want to know, how do you mesh that with this refuse fee going back into the property tax? I didn't understand that at all. Landlords, and let's say you own a rental property with 4 units. Well, how do you make the calculation for them for their property tax? Is it, you know, I don't know, I saw no explanation there. People are asking those questions. What about commercial units downtown that use private waste haulers? What happens to them? Are they, you know, going to get double payment, you know, that they're paying a private waste hauler, now they're going to also have to pay a refuse fee, which they weren't paying before? These are questions you should answer to the general public before this goes into effect. So consider that for your next meeting. On boards, commissions, and authorities, an item close to my heart now that I'm on the ethics board. I hope you all know that there are now 15 boards, commissions, and authorities. I have them at home if you'd like a list. And in 2019, there were only 14. At that time, it was budgeted for $690,000. Then you create the ethics board, and that budget goes down to $637,000, which is a $53,000 decrease. I put in a budget proposal for $62,000 and change. Looks like I'm getting $25,000. I'm here to tell you, when that money runs out, we'll be taking a hiatus, because it's not coming out of my pocket or my members' pockets. I saw an allusion again to stormwater management and how important it was, and I didn't see any numbers for stormwater management. If you find them, please let me know. Payroll preparation tax, $647,918. Well, what happens if the Scranton School District says they don't want to do it? What's the plan B? You stay with the mercantile tax? Why did non-resident wage tax revenue go down from $520,000 in 2019 to $100,000? What's the story there? I see they're going to add a chief of staff position in the mayor's office. And how are you going to delineate his job description from the business administrator, who seems to be a de facto chief of staff? Increases in union health care. Everybody hold on to their socks. I saw that the police department is going up 13.6%. Fire department's going up 39%, and DPW is going up 19%. I think we need a little background on why those numbers are so large. The information technology department, you know, there are 3 people in that department, but the narrative says they need another dedicated vehicle. How many vehicles does a 3-person department need, and why, and what is that costing? Law Department, explain this sentence. It remains unknown at this time of budget submission whether the city will seek to assume the legal responsibilities of the Scranton Sewer Authority. Say what? And then you have all the pay raises listed below. So, fodder for the upcoming caucus and your next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Faye Franis?
Faye Ferranis, Scranton. First, I'd like to thank Mayor Evans for initiating the $250 garbage fee. I think that's wonderful, and I think it's fair. One thing, I don't know what Joan meant, but if you have like in the property tax, I don't know, maybe you know the answer to this. I guess it's going to be the way it is, I hope. So when you have a property and you have a tenant, the landlord normally pays $300 for each. So does that mean in their property tax, they won't just be charged $250, they'll be charged $250 for each tenant, right?
It's per building.
Per me?
It's per building, not per unit.
I can't hear you, Mr. Irvin.
It's actually per lot.
The fee doesn't go by the number of units as the previous fee did. So a 4-unit building pays one fee.
But then you know what? You're going to get really, wow. That is really saving the landlord lots and lots of money. And the city is losing out on it. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Well, on the flip side, commercial buildings that previously didn't pay now will pay. Commercial buildings that previously did not pay
Yeah, but there's many
now
apartment
do have to
buildings
pay.
that aren't commercial. Example, my neighbor, she is a tenant, so she had to pay $600 instead of $300. So there's many, many, many apartments, but I'm not going to go there right now because I have other things I want to say. I wanted to congratulate Paige Cognetti for becoming the mayor. I think that's a wonderful for the city of Scranton, based on what she said she'd like to do, stop corruption and many other things in contact with the people. But I want to say something. I really like her, too, when she chooses her department heads. I hope they're all new ones, by the way. I hope that she directs them to make sure that any question that any citizen may call up to find out the answer to, that she directs them to give them the information they ask for. Also, any council members ask for information of a department head, to please give the council members the information that they requested. Now, Mr. Gahn asked Mayor Courtwright hundreds of questions, never got answers to. That has to stop. But even department heads. And I also hope that Mrs. Cognetti, directs council to answer every question that a citizen asks for by going to that department and getting the information. And I hope the mayor enforces this. No more right to knows. None. Like I said a long time ago, when Janet Evans was president, she never ever once said do a right to know. They stay here at 10 o'clock at night to address all the answers to questions that people ask. That's the way it should be. Now, another thing. In an ordinance that you passed a couple weeks ago, maybe a month or so, containers, the operator of every establishment, meaning property, producing garbage shall provide and at times cause to be utilized approved leak-proof containers provided with close-fitting covers for the storage of such materials until removed from the premise for disposal. Now that means, that's a wonderful ordinance. That means that everybody, now this is a law that you passed. I hope that it gets enforced because I'm going to be here until it is. If I'm 90, I'll still be here drilling you. This is something that you passed. I hope it's not going to be another law that you don't follow because I've had enough of you not following the laws. So now this means that there is a law already. City code says that if DPW knows someone doesn't pay their garbage fee, they do not have to pick it up. And before you used to say it's a health hazard because people put bags out, and I understand that. But now since you have an ordinance saying that everything has to be in a garbage can with lids, there's no more bags. There's no more health hazard. But you have to enforce it. The recycling department, they went and didn't pick up recyclables that weren't right. They didn't notify anybody, they just did it. So there's no reason this can't happen. I want to know what happens when you have a law and you don't obey it. What do the people do? Where's the consequences to that? Who holds you responsible for following the law? Does that fall upon the mayor? Who does that fall upon?
So the administration enforces, council passes laws, but the administration enforces them.
Okay, so then any law that's on the city code or any law that you pass, and it's up to the mayor or...
Well, whatever department it falls under.
Okay, but where would that law for the garbage? If the DPW knows you don't pay your garbage fee, they don't have to pick it up. What department would that be that would enforce that? Business, mayor, which would that be?
Well, it'd either be probably DPW and licensing and inspections.
Well, I would appreciate it if Mrs. Cognetti would definitely enforce every law that's in this city, or why have them? And I hope I don't see council changing laws because they don't want to enforce them. I'm going to keep a close eye on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Dave Dobson?
Good evening, council. Dave Dobson, resident taxpayer. At the last meeting, and I don't want to turn it into a back and forth, a comment was made about misinformation. Well, difference of opinion is not misinformation. We never repaired those pools, and I still have a question on whether that pool would be cheaper to repair than to turn into a splash park. It'd be interesting to see bids on 2 figures. And furthermore, we did have, once again, we recommended that high school students, maybe on a swim team or whatever, could be trained and somewhat indentured, like they do with the fire departments, volunteer fire departments. They don't give you a couple $1,000s worth of training, and you don't walk away from it unless you got sick or something, discovered you had a serious condition that would preclude you serving out your term. Now, also, it was mentioned that grants were applied for the restoration of City Hall. Well, it would be interesting to find out what these grants were and for how much. You know, you people, if you lock horns with the powers that be, state assemblymen, state representatives, and senators, you might find yourself falling into disfavor. So if you had a more informed public and a better informed public, then the public could start to lobby these people, and we could help you out to get your job done. So many things have been lost, and when I first moved back to Scranton, it was the Mayor's Music Festival. I saw a lot of old friends and acquaintances and everything, and then it fell by the wayside into a bunch of money back in the Highlands Grove, and people that didn't have the money to attend were sitting up on top along the roadside there, and they were being ordered to leave. You know, and how do you get your kids without rides and amusements and stuff? They fell by the wayside in that area. You know, a 6-year-old kid isn't interested in a rock and roll or a jazz band. They're interested in going on a ride or whatever, and they were thrown out of the park, and the food vendors lost money. Now, on these commercial buildings, this is kind of concerning. You have to get a bid and have it performed by a commercial contractor, a small repair. Well, maybe we should introduce into the ordinance that if these people at least sign a statement or whatever that they're not interested in doing this repair, that they could go to a lower level repair and just have it done, because a leaky roof is a real problem. You get mold and everything else in it, and it destroys items, and you just discover the first place we lived in, we rented a house trailer out in the country, and it was a really nice place, and all of a sudden the roof started to leak the very year we moved in, and there were mushrooms growing out of the ceiling. Couldn't wait to get out of there. It dripped into a brand new stereo system and everything else, you know. Just married and screwed up already, you know. And last time I made some remarks on Mr. Amoroso. Well, too many issues were crossed over, and now they're haunting us. It's really... it's a shame. When I heard $195 million, it sounded like insurmountable to argue with, and the thought in my mind was, what's the catch? And, you know, Mr. Goffin, I'll pay you a compliment right now. You voted against the whole deal in the first place, as I remember. This pay to throw, get ready for everybody else's trash that doesn't want to pay to throw on your lawn. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Len Cerebro?
Good evening, kiddies. Lenny Cerebro, Kaiser Valley resident. Can anybody guess why I'm here? Come on, give it a try.
Flooding issues.
Thanks, Bill. Okay, for the longest time, been fighting about the flooding in Kaiser Valley. 2 years ago, one of my neighbors, Gene, who had the city maps of, or the drainage maps in the area, came up with an idea that the one drainage pipe was blocked off about 10 years ago for no other reason. It was discontinued, and that causes a lot of the problems for the flooding in the area that I'm at. Not just me, but a handful of neighbors. But after reviewing it, we decided, including the city engineer, I don't know if that is John Poches, but John Poches was up to look at the problem. Yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Let's open that pipe up. It's not going to cost a lot of money. It's not going to fully resolve the problem, but it's going to alleviate a lot of water problems. Well, that came and went. 2 years. First I heard it's too late in the season. We'll save it for next year. And then now next year came and gone. Here comes the cold weather. Nothing's being done about it. The neighbor who has the maps also talked to, I believe it was John Poches, that now the pipe is too deep to do anything about it. Boy, does that sound like another excuse to blow us all off up there in Kaiser Valley. I don't understand why we can't. Now, other neighbors have been fighting this problem for over 20 years, and they've told me they've been through everything I'm going through for about 4 years now, and that I'm wasting my time because they've been through it before, and nobody wants to do anything about it. I don't understand it, What does it take to flush the pipe, to do something? We've been through it. I don't want to waste all my time repeating the same thing I've been doing for 4 freaking years. I don't understand it. But now we got the latest excuse. The pipe is too deep. I don't understand what that means. Now, I don't know why we can't get a grant for the area either. It's totally needed. So many people have been out, engineers, the whole bit. Yeah, there's a problem there, but nobody wants to take responsibility. Why can't we get a grant to do something about it? When I see all these applications for grants, $202,000 for the mobile esports arena space for Lackawanna College. There's another one in here that just sounds ridiculous to me. that if they get their grants, why can't a flooded area get some help? The Pennsylvania Racehorse Development and Gaming Act in the amount of $140,000 for the project to be known as the Scranton Cultural Center. Why won't somebody help us? I'm here for, like a couple of square blocks of the neighbors. They just don't have the time to come here, although they do come from time to time, but I got some time on my hands. I'm retired, and this year the flooding problem hasn't been as bad as it has in past years, but still, any time we get a moderate rain, I get a couple of inches of water in my basement. Can somebody help me get information to put in this application for the Kaiser Valley stormwater problem? If anybody could help me.
Mr. Cerebral, did you talk to Denny Gallagher? I saw you were here for our caucus. Were you able to speak to the DPW director before you left?
Many times over the years.
I mean today, but after our caucus.
No, not today.
Okay.
No, because same old, every time.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to address council?
Evening, Council. Bob Ball of Scranton. Guess it's time to really put the dagger into the sand here. First of all, let's end the dumb gas card witch hunt. You're not going to gain a thing out of it other than further humiliation in the city. You'll never recapture one bloody dime, and all you're doing is wasting our time and money on a dumb witch hunt. Move forward. If you're going to move Scranton, move it forward. Mr. Gahan, move it forward. If you want to push issues, push Jim Mulligan for $87,000 for the sewer authority, for the medical insurance he took and never paid for it. Go after Hinton on the ethics. Those are the things you should be chasing. You're not going to get any money back. If the mayor said you could do it, then damn it, you could do it. It's as simple as that. No matter what you try and do, you will never recover one bloody penny. And it's a joke. I mean, it's good publicity, but it's meaningless. Put your energies to where your energy should be. Like, for example, we turn around and push more of an energy toward eliminating the garbage fee. Find out what the garbage fee, where the money goes. What happened to it? How much are we paying? Are we really obligated to pay a garbage fee or not? We pay for it in our taxes. Do your research on there. Save the citizens some money. I brought up about Naog Park, and I'm going to put this all on the spot again tonight. I filed an injunction. It's in December. Geisinger wants to pay $100,000 a year for 280 parking spaces. It's $1 a day. I want at least $5 a day. That's over $500,000 a year. That comes into the city, and you raise it $1 a day over the next 10 years and put the money into the assets. You're giving assets away, but you're worried about a dumb gas card that you're not going to get nothing out of. If you're going to do anything to benefit the city, you may run for mayor in 2 years from today. Remember, this will come back and haunt you because you have the opportunity to make Scranton better today. Paige is going in there, and I congratulate her. She did her job. Hopefully, she'll do the job we want her to do in the city of Scranton. On the last one, it's going to prejudge her. I'll wait and see where it goes. And give her the benefit of the doubt and any of the cooperation we could give her as the new mayor coming into the city of Scranton. Whether she's a female or she was a male coming in here, she deserves our cooperation in any way, shape, or form. Give her the opportunities we need. But letting Gahan walk away, and I've been bringing it up, yet you won't do a thing about it. Jim Mulligan took money. It's an insurance fraud. The AG won't do anything about it. It went back to the sewer authority, and we'll file the necessary suit if we have to collect our money. And I say our money because it was taken from all of us. We're fighting over the sewer authority. We're fighting over pennies. Then you're not doing anything to give us the real money back. Fight the issues that are important to the city of Scranton. Fight the rain tax. Fight the garbage fee. Those are the things that are putting the screws to the people in this city. Make a difference, but you're ready to turn around and not file one of yous, and I want any of yous tonight to tell me whether or not you'll file a motion on Naog Park to disband the Naog Park Recreation Authority and put it back under the control of the Recreation Authority in the city of Scranton. You guys are clueless as to what Naog Park Recreation Authority takes in, spends, or what they do with their money.
That's not true. They get audited every year.
Are you fully aware of what they spend?
I am fully aware. I don't have the numbers in front of
Okay.
me, but I do know that they have an audit. The Recreation Authority gets audited every year.
Good, I'm proud
So
that
we know
you know.
exactly what comes in and what comes out. I'm just telling you that that is the truth.
Good, well, I'm proud that you've taken the time to do it. Now make us our money. Now you know that we should be getting $500,000 a year and not $100,000 a year if you look at their records. It's dollars and cents. We've given our assets away, so you know what they're spending, you know they're not able to do what they're doing, and they're not capable of making a decision on our asset, which is Naog Park, 180 space, or 280 spaces for $1 a day per space. And if you think that's credible and that's what should be done, then you guys should all resign from this seat. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address council?
I do have one more thing.
Mr. Bullock,
No,
your
no,
time's
this
up.
has nothing to do with anything else, Pat. Come on, now, I've let people go over. I want to thank Roseanne Novembrino for her years of service and the integrity and credibility she brought to this city.
Thank you.
That's what it's about.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. Lee Morgan. I think the first thing I'd like to say is that, you know, this election process for mayor left me with only one question that I don't think anybody's asked. And that question is, the mayor-elect, was the mayor-elect in possession of knowledge about the mayor getting ready to resign? And I think that that'd be a wonderful question to get an answer for, because that would possibly be information that no one else had. And I don't know if the council was aware that the mayor was going to resign, so I mean, I just find that to be a very troubling development.
Yep.
And my question is, was the Auditor General aware of that? Because that had turned this whole election upside down. The other thing I have here is, you know, citizens come here and they talk about licensing and inspections. I just don't really understand what the problem is, even with the water runoff that a resident in the city is experiencing. I think the greatest gift they could give themselves is pick up a law book and file something. I've had disagreements with licensing and inspections. I'm a truck driver. I've overcome everything this city's ever done to me in a court of law by myself with no help from anyone. And I just think that too many people are under a perception that government is legitimate. But I believe scholars now are starting to debate, and I mean constitutional scholars, on whether the government is indeed legitimate, because so many people have walked away from the vote and what the Democratic Party has done to this Republican president and the way they've used the mechanisms of government as a weapon. And, you know, you have to understand that That's close to what the city government's done to the residents. They've weaponized city government against the residents in every instance, whether it had to do with the garbage fees, licensing and inspections, whether people can get small tidbits. They're actually, the residents of the city are on their hands and knees begging the government to help them, when in all reality, the government should be serving them. But the government doesn't serve us. We serve it. It taxes us at levels that are just beyond the comprehension of most people. It's just ridiculous. Now, we're going to have a mayor-elect come in soon. And you know, I do intend to make some recommendations to the mayor-elect, but I don't find the city to be out of distress. I find it to be on the brink of bankruptcy. And you know, Mr. Bolus brought up the authority, the Recreation Authority. Authorities are founded for one reason, because the people you elect in government can't do the job. They can't run anything. They can get elected to many different things, most often with other people's money, but they can't run the government. So they create authorities to run everything. And that's pretty much what's happened to our own federal government. We've created an infrastructure of people who can question our elected government and whether they want to do what the elected people were elected to do. And that's what's happened to our America. And the Founding Fathers, they had opinions too. And they all thought this would happen someday, but they didn't think that the country would last over 200 years without the people rising up and throwing the government off of itself. And maybe that day is close at hand. But I'll say this, I think it's time for the Scranton Times to start asking some real questions of the people we elect. You know, there's questions about judges that just won another term and whether they were qualified. I know more about those judges than the Scranton Times has ever printed. And even our own government. And you have to ask a question, how can a legitimate representative form of government function without honest reporting?
Is there anyone else who would like to address council?
Good evening, Marie Schumacher. Joan asked about the MS4 permit be answered in fifth order. It's a quick answer. Do we have a date that that will be submitted?
We received a 20-day extension from October 31st, and I was told today by Mr. Bolzoni that all of the process of getting the permit in is ongoing. So that was the update they gave me.
So we haven't done it yet. Okay, well, I would really suggest to Lenny and his fellow neighbors there that keep getting flooded and getting nothing out of this council or the city, that he goes to the state and tells them, this city is not performing the job that they are supposed to be doing. Maybe they can come in and take over the DPW. I don't know, but something has to change. On a good note, switching, I was happy to see that on some of the appointments that are being made tonight, there were at least some letters of interest that were included, and some that showed some capability to actually perform for those. And I don't think in the future, one of the things I would recommend to you is if there is none, you don't even put it on the agenda. We deserve knowing whether the person is qualified. Now, when our current mayor was taking office, he said he was going to plan to reconvene regional stakeholders in the upcoming weeks and continue a dialogue that began before former Mayor Bill Courtwright's resignation regarding a regional approach to stormwater management. Has that meeting happened?
I don't know. I'm not positive. I know that Senator Blake, when he also came before us, he was supposed to get a group together. I'm not
Yeah,
positive.
well, he's already thrown in the towel on that. I mean, we're wrong.
Again, I'm not
But-
sure. I'm not positive.
Well, maybe you could get an answer before next week.
Mhm.
Then what happened to the FEMA projects where they were supposed to clean out the debris to ward off a recurrence of the August 2018 flooding? And then the gentleman came in saying we would destroy a generation of minnows.
We had a caucus tonight with FEMA representatives, PEMA representatives, DPW officials about what you're speaking of, and those projects are ongoing. The city is receiving funding from both the federal and state government because of that.
So they're
storm.
going ahead and doing it?
Yes, and there was a representative from the Fish and Boat Commission here as well, so they're working in conjunction with them.
Okay. Now, I would like to know why 7C was back on the agenda tonight. It's been tabled again, but why was it even back on without any explanation?
No, I don't believe that was ever tabled.
No, we tabled it tonight. That was the first time it was tabled.
Okay.
You might be getting just confused because it's Barry Isaac is in both of them. The Lips one was brought back.
Why was, okay, the other one that was brought back, what was the issue that was not voted on the first night?
The issue was, it was a 2-year contract, and I don't want to speak for everybody,
Yeah.
but we were kind of going back and forth on whether we should limit it to 1 year, because even when the representatives from Barry Isaac came in, they had explained they probably don't need 2 years. It would probably take them about a year, so we thought it would be too open-ended.
Yeah. Okay. Now, what, if anything, has been done to lasso in the police overtime?
I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, I read into the record a response I got from Chief Graziano. I can't remember off the top of my head. I can provide it to you, but he did provide an explanation as to why they were over budget, and he was going to provide a report as to what amount is reimbursable. So that figure that you see is not accurate as to what the city has to pay out. There are costs that the city will get reimbursed for.
When is Chief Graziano, who I understand is going to be retiring at the end of the year, is he going to tell us all the things that we gave in 2015 for the extended contract and how well that's been met or not, and the same with the fire?
Right. That would be a function, I think, of the business administrator.
Has that been requested?
I've requested it in the past. I'm going to request it again tonight because I agree with you. I think it's important, and I think back in 2016, Mr. Bolzoni had stated that I think the newspaper had requested it, I had requested it, and he said you had to wait a full fiscal year to see the full, how much money we were saving and cost benefit analysis. To date, I don't know that has been done, but I am going to request that again tonight.
Yeah, well, I'm going to
Thank
keep
you.
asking that every week, and I would also like to know in
Your
fifth
time
order,
is
I
up.
guess, when the Pocket Park when that environmental work is going to, cleanup is going to be done?
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address council?
Fifth order, 5A motions.
Mr. Donahue, any motions or comments?
Just briefly, we received the budget on Friday. I just had a chance to go over it this morning, so I have as many questions as Joan has provided to us. A lot of my questions are listed in Joan's questions, then I have many more. But on the refuse fee, the problem with that is, the way logistically is, so it's broken down by parcel. So for example, if there's a homeowner that has 2 parcels, they're gonna pay double the fee. So that's one of the issues I have with that. Like, for example, so I have 2 parcels. I have one with, I get 2 separate tax bills. I have one that my house is on, and I have one that just gets a land value tax bill. So that's gonna come in double the fee, and that's, all over the city. it's actually going to negatively impact, I believe, the land bank too. The idea of the land bank was, you know, you have vacant property in between two properties. You split the property in half. There's different PIN numbers, and you get billed differently. So that's one of I just think it needs to be worked out. But I will be putting together a list of my questions and providing them to the administration, hopefully that we could get an answer on. That's all I have tonight.
Thank you. Attorney Dempsey, any motions or comments?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Rogan, I do. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for attending. I would like to thank Mayor Evans for coming to see us tonight. I, as well, have a dear family member struggling with cancer at the present time, and I echo his sentiments as well as those of Mr. McGough. Be a friend, if and when you can, to anybody struggling in any situation. I'd also like to give my commendations to Ms. Novembrino. While I did not know her personally, everyone I have spoken to about her has held her in the highest regard, and I wish her nothing but happiness and health in her retirement. I'd like to make a motion at this time. First, let me preface it. I've been thinking more and more about grants for this city, and I understand we do have a full-time grant writer who does a lot of work for the police and the DPW, who is really nothing but exceptional according to all accounts that I've been given. But I have to think, for a city coming out of financial distress, as well for a city that has so much historical architecture and maybe even dire need of infrastructure repairs, that there isn't more out there for us. So while I'm not sure I can effectuate it, ideally I'd like to see a part-time or full-time grant writer written into this coming budget. So I'm going to make a motion at this time that we send a letter to the Office of Economic and Community Development. What I'd like to know is, over the last 3 years, the types of grants the city has received, from whom we've received them, and for what use they went for. And then once we receive those, maybe I can use that, and our team up here can use that to make further determinations.
Is there a second?
Second.
On the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
Thank you. I want to update people on the payroll tax conversion. I was at a meeting on November 12th. It was a very well-attended meeting in Mayor Evans's office. Mayor-elect Cognetti was there, Mr. Bolzoni was there, Solicitor Esker was there, reps of PEL were there, and reps of the Scranton School District were there, including their solicitor. I consider that a very productive meeting that answered many of the questions I had on that going forward. While I am not sure I am going to be here to vote on that if and when the time comes, I remain convinced that this is the right way for the city to move. As it stands now, relative to the Scranton School District, it does go back to their board to make further determinations and decisions, but for the time that I remain here, I'm going to closely monitor that. I attended an ethics board meeting with Joan, I think it was 2 weeks ago. I again want to commend them for their continuing service to this community. This is not an easy job. I heard a lot of the logistics that you have to do, and they were logistics that I don't think a lot of people even thought of. I hear what you're saying about the budget. I don't know if and what we can effectuate, but I'm going to take a second look at that for you as well. This may not be a popular opinion in this room, especially to Mr. Bolus and a couple other people, but I attended a recreational authority meeting as well. And honestly, I was very impressed by what I saw up there. Those men are a group of doers. There's people who are talkers. They get up and talk and talk and talk. These men talk and then do. And they not only do it, they do it themselves. They have great ideas this year for Naog Park, and I think they're really trying to create a revitalization of that park. I'm 53. I have very, very fond memories of that. This year they're going to have the horse-drawn carriage rides. They're going to have a plant-a-tree memorial. They're hanging up new wreaths. They're going to have the winter lights all updated, and they're going to have horse-drawn carriage lights. So it's hard to look at them and say they're not doing much, in my perspective, so I want to commend and thank them as well. I want to note my ongoing concern, may be a strong word, my ongoing attention to the signing of the ethics code. I signed mine in the office this week. To me, there is no question that the collective bargaining agreements and the people who are members of the union do not really have a great argument in this regard. I have cited it before, and I will cite it again, the section that specifically states if there is any conflict, the collective bargaining agreements trump. So there's really not much to read through. As long as you can read the English language, I think it's very clear. It's very, very important to me that we have that code signed by all our employees. After what this city has gone through in the course of the last 6 to 9 months, if we can't have people working here, including us 5, who are going to follow the letter of the law and who are going to act in an ethical manner, We've done nothing. So I'm going to ask the administration to take a somewhat strong approach to that, and hopefully we're going to get all of those signed as soon as possible. With my ongoing garbage fight with delinquencies, I am aware that there was a meeting last week with our solicitor and an administrative representative, it might have been their solicitor, actually, I take that back, from NRS. I do not have an update on that. I have certainly asked for it, but has not been provided to me. If I have that next week, I will advise. And I'm also asking them, and I have not received an explanation or an answer yet, when we're going to be sending out the RFQ, because ideally, we don't want to lose any monthly income for the collection of delinquencies, and I'd like to have that up and running as soon as possible. Regarding the audit, Mr. Gahan and I were speaking about that earlier, or late last week or earlier today, and we sent an email to Mr. Bolzoni, and he did get back to us just today. We're concerned that that's not ready as of yet, and I think 2 dates were given. Maybe Mr. Donahue had gotten a date of November 1st. I had been given a date of December 1st. But the email was asking very simply, when will the audit be ready for review? And Mr. Bolzoni's response to us is that he's not changed his requirement to have it, at very least, at draft by December 1st. I don't expect it sooner. They indicated they may need to restate a component of the 2017 audit, but I do not have any additional detail. We continue to monitor that. If we don't have more detail, I'd say by next week or definitively by our following meeting, I'm going to ask for something in writing something more detailed in writing so that we can follow up on that. Mr. Donahue brought up a good point in caucus. I would really like to see that audit before I make any strong decisions on the budget. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gahn, any motions or comments?
Yes, thank you. First, just on the issue of the MS4 permit and stormwater management, I would like to ask if council can request a caucus before the end of the year with the city engineer, the city planner, and Herbert, Rowland, and Grubik to give us an update on the city's MS4 permit application, our pollution reduction plan, and the feasibility of managing stormwater on a regional basis. Back in summer of 2019, City Council passed contract legislation, entered into a contract with HRG, who would work with the city directly on its pollution reduction plan, which is a key step in complying with the pollution reduction requirements imposed by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. The firm at that time, the way it was explained to us, was to help the city determine the best management practices it should implement to maintain its MS4 permit. So I do think, and the other thing that they were also going to work with the city on was exploring the feasibility and benefits of managing stormwater on a regional basis. So I think, again, before the end of the year, I think we should have a public caucus and be briefed on that. We keep getting updates kind of piecemeal. I think it would be best if we got everybody on the same page and in the same room. As for Mr. Cerebro's issue that has been ongoing now for the last few years, Mrs. Reed, if we could again send something to the DPW, ask for another meeting with Mr. Cerebro and all the parties involved and revisit this. I know I just can't understand at this point why what seems like a simple fix can't be taken care of. So again, Mr. Cerebro will try to get a meeting together and try to get that taken care of. We did receive the self-audit and all of the backup to the self-audit from Fire Chief DeSarno. So council will and will be in the process over the next few days of reviewing that. Also, I wanted to mention earlier today in our caucus we had members of the Federal Emergency Management Agency, the Pennsylvania Emergency Management Agency, DPW officials, Dennis Gallagher, the department director, Chris Jenkins, a foreman, and some other representatives from different agencies across the state. And Mrs. Schumacher had brought this up earlier tonight. As a result of that August 10th to August 15th, 2018 storm, 11 counties and their associated political subdivisions, including our county of Lackawanna, were declared for the FEMA Public Assistance Program. That program is a reimbursement program that provides federal funding to help communities respond to and recover from federally declared disasters. Those two agencies reimburse state and local governments and certain types of private nonprofit organizations for the costs of disaster-related debris removal, emergency protective measures to protect life and property, and permanent repair work to damaged or destroyed infrastructure. The city actually took in quite an amount of damage. For the removal and disposal of storm-related debris and emergency services, we're claiming a little over $1 million worth of damage. The restoration of damaged infrastructure, roads, pump stations, flood control gates, we're claiming nearly $1.3 million. So we have a total claim of nearly $2.5 million, and there's eligible management costs. Right now, the city has received $156,709.54. These projects over the next few months will be ongoing. As I mentioned to you earlier tonight, they are working close with the Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission because of some concerns with the wildlife in the water. Mr. Jenkins, who is here tonight, who has done, by all accounts, a really great job in kind of putting everybody together and bringing all these people together to get this reimbursement money, made a few comments that I thought were a little concerning, one of which I don't think we really can do anything about. He mentioned that in cities who have similarly sized populations as Scranton, they have emergency management and emergency response teams, and they have 20 full-time people dedicated just to that for all of these different things that go on, floods and other disasters. Obviously, right now, we only have Mr. Jenkins, who really, that's not even his job, according to him, doing that. And we also have Mr. DeSarno, who we made the emergency management coordinator. Now, as I was sitting there tonight in the caucus and Mr. Jenkins was talking about emergency management in the city of Scranton, I did think back to last year. The administration granted the fire chief a $12,500 increase in salary, and that was due to the fact that we were giving him another title of, or another responsibility as emergency management coordinator. I had asked several questions about this and what functions and what duties he would take on with this new position or this new title. Mr. Bolzoni responded last year that the emergency management coordinator will do the following. He will conduct training assessments, develop a multi-year training plan, conduct relevant training for designated personnel with emergency planning, response, or recovery responsibilities. He'll also be responsible for developing and facilitating pertinent plan documents and exercises related to relevant hazards and threats. Mrs. Reed, if you can please request from the fire chief or the administration any documents related to what those responsibilities entailed and what has been done in that role as emergency management coordinator. Again, I would like to see what kind of progress was made. There was a substantial increase granted in last year's budget, and I think we should see where, what kind of bang we got for our buck there. Mrs. Dempsey mentioned the 2018 audit. Where is it? We don't have it yet, obviously, as she mentioned. Mr. Bolzoni gave a response that he's looking for it on December 1st, at least a draft by December 1st. He does not expect it sooner. The audit company indicated they may need to restate a component of the 2017 audit, but he does not have additional detail. That begs many other questions. What is that 2017 component? Why does it need to be restated? What is the issue where we're not getting the audit on time, why we have to wait until December 1st? As Councilwoman Dempsey and Councilman Donahue had mentioned, it's difficult to make a decision on the budget when you don't have the audit from the previous year for a number of different reasons. So I would think that one of the things that we should probably do is, and I've thought this for quite a few years, request an exit conference with the audit company so that I think they have a conference with the administration. I think we should have one with the audit company in a public caucus, number one. And number two, let's just get in touch with the auditing firm and find out from them what the story is here and why this is taking so long. So maybe we want to put something in writing and draft something on that end. Mrs. Schumacher asked about police department overtime. Again, I'm waiting on a report from Chief Graziano. That number sometimes is misleading because, again, you have to see what is reimbursed from other entities who have used our police department for various things. Went out and met with a woman who lives on Schimpf Court behind Kelly's Pub and Eatery. Several concerns out there. We did send this to the DPW. I would like to see in the next round of paving if we could get Schimpf Court paved. I know it might be frowned upon to look to pave courts and not other major streets throughout the city, but there are several families who live on Schimpf Court, and this court has not been paved in decades. So several people do live here. They have an awful hard time getting out, especially during the winter. Also, Breck Street off of Cedar Avenue should also be placed on the potential paving list. And in the interim, there are clumps of debris in Schimpf Court from runoff that needs to be removed, and we did send that to the DPW. Also, there was a resident who reached out to me about the Bloom Avenue Bridge in North Scranton falling apart and issues there. We are waiting for an update from the city engineer on that project. Councilwoman Dempsey mentioned the ethics code signing. I couldn't agree with her anymore. I think that I don't know where the confusion lies, and for a few reasons. Number one, we passed the ethics code, I think, back in January of this year. So there's been more than enough time for people to read it. Number two, it should be on the department head to make sure that all the employees in the department read the code, understand it, sign it, and then the training should be held. If there's any confusion about whether a bargaining agreement conflicts with the ethics code, as Councilwoman Dempsey pointed out within the last few weeks, there's a clause in there that we specifically put in last year that states if the code conflicts with the bargaining agreement will supersede it. I believe it was the police union who their union representative had sent council a letter, which our solicitor reviewed a year ago with concerns about the ethics code, and we addressed them before final passage. So again, I just think that we need to get going on this, and then trainings can be held. I also want to thank Director Gallagher for coming to our caucus tonight and answering some unanswered questions about the gas card situation. Contrary to what Mr. Bola said, I do think this is still important. Remember, these are taxpayer dollars. So, you can't just look the other way. We have a responsibility and an obligation as council members and as an oversight branch to look at these things and to make sure that they're being done the right way, which is why we'll be voting on an audit tonight. So I just want to say I do appreciate him coming and giving us some more information. In regards to one of the questions that came up about the large amount of gas that was purchased on 2 different days in January 2018 and 2019, he did provide receipts for both of those days that show that there were garbage trucks that had to be filled. So I appreciate that. The non-fuel purchase that was in question of 2548 on January 22nd, 2018, Mr. Gallagher did not have a receipt for that. But again, I do appreciate it. And that's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a couple quick comments. Obviously, we'll be introducing the budget tonight, and don't have a whole lot to say on it just because it is such a large document, and I don't think any of us had a chance to fully analyze it. But one item that has come up from the podium, and I know a lot of residents have been talking about, is about the change in the garbage fee. Just to add a little bit further clarification, I know Councilman Donahue touched on this as well, that it does eliminate the $300 per unit garbage fee, and it rolls it into the taxes as a $250 fee that's paid per parcel or per building or on vacant land. Also, the fee is now going to be paid on commercial buildings that previously have not paid the fee. In my conversations with Mayor Evans, one of the thoughts was to work on, and we saw over this past weekend, the need for electronics recycling to be offered not only to residences but also to those commercial properties as well that will now be paying the fee. On the whole, I'm very supportive of the change. It is a step in the right direction, and the biggest reason for the decrease is because our garbage collection rates were abysmal. I know we talked about it numerous times at these meetings about people who owe hundreds of thousands of dollars in back garbage fees, and other than putting a lien on the property, really nothing can be done. Now, if the garbage fees are not paid as part of the taxes, property goes to tax sale, just as if you don't pay your taxes. So by increasing that collection rate from in the 60s to in the 90s, that allows the total rate to come down from $300 to $250. So one point in the budget that I am fully supportive of. I think it's a step in the right direction. There are some other items that I do have concerns about, some new positions, some salary increases. Again, it's a very large budget. Have to look through it much closer. But I wanted to bring up those two items. Licensing, inspections, and permits came up again tonight. We are going to be voting on a piece of legislation to do a review in that department. That department does need a complete revamping. And I do agree with some of the items that were mentioned, that it is too difficult to get a permit, particularly for small business owners or somebody that owns a 4-unit rental building is considered commercial under the city ordinance. I believe it comes from the state ordinance, but that's something that we could look into personally, and I don't think there's much support for going as far as I would like to go. I would like to deregulate the entire department and make it a much easier process, put in for a permit online. Owner occupants could do any work they would like with the exception of safety components, electrical, things of that nature. That's what I would like to see happen. But hopefully with the review of that department, that will be a step in the right direction. Finally, and I wanted to bring this up in caucus, but if my colleagues agree, I would like to send a letter to the school district to ask where they stand regarding the payroll prep tax and a conversion from the mercantile tax now that the referendum passed by such a wide margin. So if everyone's in agreement with that, I'd like to send a letter to the school district. I am fully supportive of this change, but I do think it's important that it needs to be done in conjunction with the school district. If it's not, much of the benefit goes away of changing the system. I was very happy, and I think we all were pleased with the result of that referendum, that it passed by such a wide margin. I'll be honest, I was very surprised, because typically when there's a referendum and people see the word tax, they tend to vote no, even without knowing the full repercussions. So very happy with how that turned out. And finally, I would like to congratulate all the winners of the election, Paige Cognetti, everyone who ran. It's very difficult to run for office, so that they all deserve to be commended. Also look forward to new colleagues on city council come next year. That is all.
Can I just make one statement? I'm sorry, Mr. Rogan. I would be remiss if I didn't mention, as Mayor Wayne Evans, who came earlier tonight, Bob McGough. And I almost forgot that it would be 4 years tomorrow since he has passed away. Mrs. Reed and I often think about some of the things that he did when he was council president and on council, and I was just a rookie councilman coming in, and he kind of took me under his wing, and he was such a great person. And when I think of somebody who had class, he really did have class. You can't teach that, you just have it. And he always did the right thing. And I just appreciated sitting next to him up here. He was a great person. When he was going through his battle with cancer, he really fought it. I mean, I've never seen anyone fight like that in my entire life. And I think all of us who had the pleasure to work with him learned something from him, both before he was sick and then when he was going through that. So again, his wife is such a great person. His children are great people, and we're all thinking of him today. Thank you.
Couldn't agree more, and since we're talking about it, well, you really hit the nail on the head on your comments. And when I first came on council, Mr. McGough and myself were on opposite sides of the political aisle on many issues. But by the end of our time on council together, not only have we become friends, but we found compromise. There were many times when we would be completely opposite ends on an issue, and a compromise would be reached. So unfortunately, in the political arena that we live in now, that's something that's very rare. Thank you.
5B for introduction and ordinance appropriating funds for the expenses of the city government for the period commencing on the first day of January 2020 to and including December 31, 2020 by the adoption of the general city operating budget for the year 2020.
This time I'll entertain a motion that item 5B be introduced into its proper committee.
Second.
On the question?
Yes, on the question. As my colleagues mentioned earlier, we did just receive the budget on Friday, so I'm still, as they all are, in the process of reviewing it. However, just looking at it briefly and not really going in depth, I do have several concerns. Last November, during the budget season, I had posed several questions to Mr. Bolzoni regarding the 2019 budget. And I stated at that time that I was concerned that the city was underestimating expenditures and overstating revenues. And I'll give you one example. A question that I had posed to Mr. Bolzoni and the administration last year at the same time was the following. The city projected health care insurance costs are based on 2018 year-to-date costs according to the budget narrative. I asked what are the health care costs for the city as of November 20th, 2018. If you assume that healthcare costs will increase 3.5% for the 2019 budget year, and you take the 2018 annualized health insurance costs of roughly $16.5 million, the projected 2019 health insurance costs would be roughly $17 million. The city is actually projecting that health insurance costs will be $15.5 million. My concern is that healthcare costs may be understated by nearly $1.5 million. Can you please provide your rationale for the 2019 budgeted healthcare costs and budget worksheet calculations? Mr. Bolzoni did provide that, and then he did give an explanation that there were 2 claims subject to stop loss of $500,000, 5 claims approximating stop loss, 4 expected to recur in 2019, 3 are non-recurring. He says several calculations are from the low end of the prospective data range, anticipated savings exceeding $500,000 from the Remedy Analytics Program are incorporated into the forecast. Draw your own conclusions as warranted based on the above information. Mr. Bolzoni states in the 2020 budget narrative that he under-budgeted the health care costs last year. As Ms. Hodawanitz had mentioned, the city will see an increase in health care costs from what was budgeted in 2019 to 72%, according to my calculations. So at this time, it looks like we're going to be over budget in almost every category. So I'm going to have questions on that because I would like to know, first of all, what were the savings from this Remedy Analytics Program, and how could we be that off with healthcare projections? And, you know, when I asked this last year, I don't want to say that I wasn't taken seriously, but I felt like I was kind of dismissed, and it wasn't really taken seriously. But I did have a concern about that last year. This is another budget which unfortunately survives on one-time revenue streams. In Mr. Bolzoni's narrative, it states that the budget uses one-time variable revenue assignments through the sale of refuse receivables and/or a refuse amnesty, as well as recurring means through the introduction of the payroll preparation tax and the subsequent phasing out of the current year business privilege and mercantile tax collections. It also goes on to say that a refuse fee may be embedded in the real estate tax bill beginning in either 2020 or 2021. I have a few concerns here, and most of it is about logistics. And I think having a public caucus with Mr. Bolzoni and the mayor and the administration will hopefully quell some of these concerns. One, if it's not done until 2021, wouldn't that create a revenue shortfall? What would be the effect of not turning over the refuse fee into the real estate tax bill? So it seems like there's a variable here. It can either be done in 2020 or 2021. What does that process look like? What data do we have that points to this initiative broadening the collection universe and increasing the collection rate? Mr. Bolzoni also used the term "in theory," which does not instill, the greatest confidence in me, at least. And I know Councilman Donahue had brought up some concerns, again, about the logistics. So I think we want to know how this whole thing is going to work out. I'm sure they put some thought into it, and I'd like to know, or hopefully they put some thought into it, and I'd like to know what that looks like. My other question is, I did have a conversation with Mr. Bolzoni a few weeks ago during the preliminary phase when they released the preliminary budget, and at that time he explained to me that it looked like we were going to have a deficit anywhere between $1.5 million to $2 million. So if it weren't for, this one-time revenue stream and this sale of refuse receivables, which again, I think we need to know way more about before we approve this budget, and a refuse amnesty program, which again, short on details, we probably will be looking at a tax increase. I would like to know what the tax increase would look like this year if that wasn't the option, and if this doesn't pan out, what is Plan B? What is their Plan B? I know that they may not be here next year. There will be a new administration, but I do think it's incumbent upon them to explain that. And if it doesn't work out, what will the tax increase or deficit look like next year? Mr. Bolzoni stated in his budget summary that the Pennsylvania Economy League and the Amoroso Recovery Plan recommended incremental tax increases over a number of years, which it did. What I'm concerned about, quite honestly, is not the city and I'm not advocating a tax increase, but what I'm advocating is just everybody, and I'm not saying that people aren't being honest, but all I'm saying is if you don't raise taxes for a number of years in a row, and then what I don't want to happen is next November, the November surprise comes and we're raising them double digit, and that is my fear. So I think we need to ask for further clarification on that, and let's try to get a true picture of what's going on. Also, I think that it's crucial that we have a caucus with the Pennsylvania Economy League. As has been discussed here many times, we are exiting from Act 47, and technically we will be shedding the distress label. My concern, though, is that even though we may be shedding the title of distressed, we still will technically be distressed. Year after year, if we don't have these one-time revenue sources, our expenditures are exceeding our revenues. So again, I think we need to have a conversation with Pell about that, and I know that Mr. Cross from Pell was in touch with Mrs. Reed, and they are going to issue, as they do every year, their letter to council on the budget. Also, the lowering the garbage fee from $300 to $250. I'd like to know what data was used to make the refuse revenue projections. What is the process and timeline for transferring that refuse bill into the real estate tax bill? Have all of the potential pitfalls that Mr. Donahue has mentioned, have these been thought out? Did the administration consider, and I'm sure they did, the current lawsuit regarding the trash fee when making this move? I think council was told months ago that the city couldn't do really anything with the garbage fee or move it into the real estate tax bill because of the lawsuit. So what has changed in that regard? And we probably need an update on the lawsuit. In regards to what Mrs. Schumacher had mentioned regarding the union contracts that were renegotiated in 2015 that were claiming to save millions of dollars over the life of the contracts, I went back and looked in the archives, and on March 20th, 2016, Mr. Bolzoni had mentioned that the administration had not conducted an analysis of the new contracts and the cost-benefit analysis, but would at the end of the year when a full fiscal year had passed. He said at that time that it would allow for a more accurate financial picture of savings and new revenue. I would like to know if this analysis has taken place yet. If so, I think council deserves a copy of it, and I do think that's important, especially moving forward. Also, I think I asked this last year about the SAFER grant for the fire department. That grant, I believe, expired in 2018. It was funding at least 14 firemen. I'd like to ask if it is the administration's plan to keep these firemen. I'm assuming it is, since it's baked into the budget. And how are they going to pay for them? Are they going to absorb the positions into the budget, paying the full cost? What does that look like? This was a concern. I know a few years ago it was in the newspaper. Back in 2016, the administration at that time had said their plan was possibly to lay off those positions until positions became available once the grant ran out. And in April of 2016, the city claimed that the hiring of these firemen would drastically reduce overtime. So again, I think we do need some confirmation on that. I requested a copy of the summary trial balance of all city accounts as of October 31st, 2019 and October 31st, 2018. I believe that we did receive those today. I haven't had a chance to look at them. I also asked what the accounts payable amount was on January 1st, 2019, and what the accounts payable was as of November 15th, 2019. There are quite a few employees who have received raises in the budget. I would like if Mr. Bolzoni could just detail which employees, non-union employees, received those raises, the amount of the raise, and I believe he did provide a rationale in the budget narrative. Also, Mr. Bolzoni stated that the improvement in mercantile and business privilege tax collection percentages through the use of analytics by the single tax office was never fully realized. So it begs the question of why that was never fully realized. I also think we need to have a caucus with the city tax collector on this and other issues. I had a chance to speak to Mr. Fox, and he agreed that that wouldn't be a terrible idea. So I do think we should make an effort before we pass the budget to get them in here to ask them questions about that. Also in the narrative, it says that the licensing and inspections budget reflects an optimism that tax abatement legislation will have a positive effect on development. Not sure I necessarily agree with this statement. To date, as far as I know, we have only received 5 applications. 5 applications have been pulled for the tax abatement legislation. So I'd like to know what the rationale is behind that. The other thing that's mentioned in the budget that I have a problem with already is the optional salary components for additions in the mayor's office and the fire department. I don't think I've seen this done before in 5 years, and I think according to the narrative, Mr. Bolzoni and the mayor and his administration are putting in salary, but they're not putting in the position. I guess they're leaving that up to the next mayor. They want to put an addition in the mayor's office, the fire department, DPW, a second shift mechanic. It's just my belief that it either should be in the budget or not in the budget. Because I think, council has to vote on that, and you're kind of circumventing the checks and balances. Because who's to say that you can't take that other salary and create a position that's not mentioned here? I don't know that there's precedent for that, and off the top of my head and off of having a cursory review of this, I would have an issue with that. Also, other salary is funded for the possibility that the single tax office is designated as collector of payroll prep tax. The office will be required to add personnel for the collection of the tax. Again, way too arbitrary. We need more information on this. I don't think we should go into the 2020 budget not knowing how many people they might possibly need, what those costs might look like. So again, we need more information on that. I had asked Mr. Gallagher, who came to our caucus tonight, about the DPW fleet manager. In the budget, they're calling it the DPW fleet coordinator. I'd like to know if this is a union or non-union position. Another thing that came up in my quick look at the budget was the firehouse improvement projects. We're still paying for finishing items, so I'd like to know, what are they? What is the total cost of this project, and did we go over budget? I mean, I could be wrong, but it seems like this project has been going on now for quite a few years. This had to be at least, I think, 2015 or maybe 2016 that was in the budget, and it seems like we're still trying to finish it up. I'd also like to get an update on the Novembrino project, and to piggyback on what Councilwoman Dempsey had mentioned earlier about the grants, I think as part of this process, we should get an update on all projects in the city that are currently ongoing. For example, the Sereni Center, which I was against a few years ago, seems to be a huge cost to our budget. So I'd like to know what the amount is on that project. Again, I would like to invite the Pennsylvania Economy League to a public caucus. I think it's important to make sure, especially in light of our potential exit from Act 47, that we are in line with our exit plan projections. I do want to thank Mr. Bolzoni for his narratives. They're very helpful, and I do know that a lot of effort and a lot of time goes into preparing these budgets, presenting these budgets, so I do want to thank them for that. And I do look forward to council compiling their questions or concerns, presenting them to the administration, and then having the ability to have a conversation about it. I would say that, I know Ms. Hodawan said delivered questions to us tonight. Any questions that the public has about the budget, since this is taxpayer dollars and this is your money, I personally would take those questions, and I would hope that my colleagues would, and we would incorporate that into the document that we're going to send the administration. So if you do have any questions, in your review of the budget, if you could get them to council so that we can include them in what we send to the administration. And those are my initial thoughts on the budget. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yes, just real quick on the question. I did bring up my reservations with my colleagues in caucus about introducing a budget without our audit. So I'll be voting against introducing the budget.
Anyone else? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
The ayes have it, and so moved.
5C for introduction of resolution, reappointment of Catherine J. Gilmartin, 1525 Caphouse Avenue, Scranton, Pennsylvania, 18509, as a member of the Historical Architecture Review Board. Catherine Gilmartin's term on the Historical Architecture Review Board expired on October 11, 2017, and was held over until October 9, 2019. Her new term will expire on October 11, 2022.
This time I'll entertain a motion that item 5C be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5D for introduction of resolution, reappointment of Nell O'Boyle, 603 Arthur Avenue, Scranton, Pennsylvania, 18510, as a member of the Historical Architecture Review Board. Nell O'Boyle's term on the Historical Architecture Review Board expired on October 11, 2019. Her new term will expire on October 11, 2024.
This time I'll entertain a motion that item 5D be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5E for introduction of resolution, appointment of Walter Barron, 1016 Luke Avenue, Scranton, Pennsylvania, 18510, as a member of the Human Relations Commission for a 5-year term. Walter Barron will be replacing Stephanie Bressler, whose term expired September 23, 2018, and was held over until August 27, 2019. Walter Barron's term is effective October 11, 2019, and will expire on October 11, 2024.
This time I'll entertain a motion that item 5E be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5F for introduction of resolution, reappointment of Aja E. Wentham, 711 Harrison Avenue, Scranton, Pennsylvania, 18510, as a member of the Human Relations Commission for an additional 5-year term effective October 9, 2019. Aja Wentham's term expired on August 24, 2018, and was held over until October 9, 2019. His new term will expire on August 24, 2023.
This time I'll entertain a motion that item 5F be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5G for introduction of resolution, appointment of John J. Harrington Jr., 102 Lilac Lane, Scranton, Pennsylvania, 18505, as a member, as a member of the Scranton Parking Authority, effective October 1, 2019. John J. Harrington Jr. will replace Santa Corby, who resigned effective July 4, 2019. John J. Harrington Jr. will fulfill the unexpired term of Santa Corby, whose term is scheduled to expire on June 1, 2022.
This time I'll entertain a motion that item 5G be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5H for introduction of resolution, appointment of Thomas Tanzit, 17 Terrace Drive, Scranton, Pennsylvania, 18505, as a member of the Scranton Parking Authority, effective October 11, 2019. Thomas Tanzit will replace Thomas Borthwick, who resigned effective March 16, 2019. Thomas Tanzit will fulfill the unexpired term of Thomas Borthwick, whose term is scheduled to expire on June 1, 2021.
This time I'll entertain a motion that item 5H be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5I for introduction of resolution, appointment of Todd Poosley, 1137 Rundle Street, Scranton, Pennsylvania, 18504, as a member of the Planning Commission for the City of Scranton, effective October 11, 2019, for a 4-year term. Todd Poosley will be replacing Martin Turi, whose term expired December 31, 2018. Todd Poosley's term will expire on December 31, 2022.
This time I'll entertain a motion that item 5I be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5J for introduction of resolution, appointment of Michael S. Cummings, CFMP, 809 Crown Avenue, Scranton, Pennsylvania, 18505, as a member of the Board of the Scranton Redevelopment Authority for a 5-year term, effective October 1, 2019. Michael Cummings will be replacing Joseph Healy, whose term expired March 19, 2019. Michael Cummings' term will expire October 1, 2024.
This time I'll entertain a motion that item 5J be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5K for introduction of resolution authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into a contract between the City of Scranton and Moretti CPA to perform the City of Scranton gas card audit services for all gas card activity from April 2016 through March 2019.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5K be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question, I'd just like to mention, I'm going to be voting against this, not because I don't think it needs to be done, but I do think this is the reason why we have a controller's office. It is about $10,000 in spending. I would like to see it done internally, and I would also like to see it go back further than the time frame that's allotted. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
No. The ayes have it, and so moved.
Sixth order, 6A, reading by title, file of the council number 76, 2019, an ordinance amending file of the council number 45, 1996, as amended by file of the council number 110, 2005, updating the list of historic properties in the city of Scranton by creating the local downtown historic district, to expand the list of historic properties to include all buildings located within the central business district, and amending the process for legislative review of recommendations made by the Historical Architecture Review Board.
You've heard reading by title of item 6A. What is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I move that item 6A pass reading by title.
Second.
On the question, I spoke a little bit about this last week, and I did talk to a few other downtown business owners that have some concerns. I'm against this legislation just because of the fact that I don't think we need to govern modern buildings by historical standards. I do agree that the purpose of the HARB is well-intentioned for historical buildings, but somebody building a new building or a building that's 5, 10, 20 years old within this zone should not have to face the delays and the added burden of going through the HARB to have exterior improvements on their property approved. Anyone else? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. The ayes have it, and so moved.
6B, reading by title, file of the council number 77, 2019, an ordinance regulating the operation of BYOB clubs, prohibiting the business of BYOB clubs between the hours of 2 o'clock a.m. and 8 o'clock a.m., and providing for enforcement of these provisions, including penalties for violations.
You've heard reading by title of item 6B. What is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I move that item 6B pass reading by title.
Second.
On the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
Seventh order, 7A, for consideration by the Committee on Rules for Adoption, Resolution Number 181, 2019, reappointment of Thomas J. McLean, 601 Stafford Avenue, Scranton, Pennsylvania, 18505, as a member of the Shade Tree Commission for an additional 5-year term. Mr. McLean's current term expires on October 29, 2019, and his new term will expire on October 29, 2024.
As chairperson for the Committee on Rules, I recommend final passage of item 7A.
Second.
On the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Attorney Dempsey?
Yes.
Mr. Gahn?
Yes.
Mr. Rogan?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7A legally and lawfully adopted.
7B for consideration by the Committee on Rules for Adoption, Resolution Number 182, 2019, reappointment of Terrence V. Gallagher Esquire, 1320 Orm Street, Scranton, Pennsylvania, 18504, as a member of the Board of the Scranton Housing Authority for a term of 5 years. Mr. Gallagher's prior term expired on September 27, 2013, and was held over until October 16, 2019. His new term will expire on September 27, 2023.
As Chair for the Committee on Rules, I recommend final passage of item 7B.
Second.
On the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Attorney Dempsey?
Yes.
Mr. Gahn?
Yes.
Mr. Rogan?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7B legally and lawfully adopted.
7C, previously tabled. 7D, previously tabled, for consideration by the Committee on Community Development for Adoption, file of the Council Number 74, 2019, amending file of the Council Number 44, 2014, and file of the Council Number 118, 2015, entitled, "An Ordinance Authorizing the Mayor and Other Appropriate Officials of the City of Scranton to take all necessary actions to implement the consolidated submission for community planning and development programs to be funded under the Community Development Block Grant Program, Home Investment Partnership Program, and Emergency Solutions Grants Program for the period beginning January 1, 2015, and for the period beginning January 1, 2016, by amending the 2015 Action Plan and the 2016 Action Plan by utilizing $63,831.69 from the 2015 Action Plan and $63,071.21 from the 2016 Action Plan in order to provide a total of $126,902.90 under the Home Investment Partnership Program to build a 2-unit rental house for low-income families in the city of Scranton, or to acquire and rehab 2 vacant houses in the city of Scranton for low-income families by and through the Scranton-Lackawanna Resources Development Corporation, a subsidiary of the Scranton-Lackawanna Human Development Agency.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Community Development?
As Chair for the Committee on Community Development, I recommend a final vote of item 7D.
Second.
On the question?
Yes, on the question, I'm on the board of the Scranton-Lackawanna Redevelopment Agency, so I will be abstaining from this vote.
Anyone else? Roll call, please.
Mr. Donahue?
Abstain.
Attorney Dempsey?
Yes.
Mr. Gahn?
Yes.
Mr. Rogan?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7D legally and lawfully adopted.
7E, previously tabled, for consideration by the Committee on Rules for Adoption, Resolution Number 167, 2019, authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into a contract with Barry Isett and Associates Incorporated for the City of Scranton Licenses and Permits Department Service Assessment.
I make a motion to amend the term of the contract effective from August 1st, 2019 to July 31st, 2021 to effective from November 19th, 2019 to November 19th, 2020.
Second.
On the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved. As chairperson for the Committee on Rules, I recommend final passage of item 7E as amended.
Second.
On the question?
On the question, given our current budgetary predicaments we're in, I believe we should have kept this on the table, therefore I'll be voting against this legislation.
Yes, on the table as well. I will be voting for this legislation based on the investigations I've done and the historical knowledge I've obtained of the Department of Licensing and Inspection. It has been plagued by deficiencies for years. I also know this is one of Mayor Evans' main initiatives, and I want to support that, and I want to support the city moving forward. I also want to assist people like Mr. Bravo and Ms. Dietrich, who came here for the last 2 meetings, to make this a more user-friendly bureau, something more progressive and something more forward-thinking that can help this city move in and move forward. So I'll be voting for it.
Yes, I will also be voting for this for a number of reasons. First of all, since I've been on council, one of the chief complaints is the Licensing and Inspections Department. Not putting blame on any one particular person, it's just The number of complaints that we've gotten over the last 5 years is unbelievable, each one of us. So at some point, you have to ask yourself what move you're going to make to correct those deficiencies and those errors and those complaints. I think the administration's plan is to bring a company in to take a look at each facet, each area of the department, work with the people who are employees in that department. There's a lot of good people that work in the licensing and inspections department. Work with whoever the new director of the department is. I think this will actually give the new administration coming in kind of a leg up on things, a fresh set of eyes to look over the department over the next year. One of the reasons I made the motion and everyone agreed with it is to amend the term of the contract, because in talking with Isid and Associates, they probably don't need 2 years. 1 year is a better way to go about it. And I think that one of the things that has to be done in that department is to get a good department head, but we don't know what is going to happen. So we can't take any chances and hope that someone coming in is going to be a genius and fix everything. Why not get the extra help? Why not get someone who has great experience with licensing and inspections department? We got all of their references in, which I was impressed by, from different cities and boroughs throughout the state of Pennsylvania. And is it perfect? No, but I think it's a step in the right direction, and that's why I'll be voting for it. Thank you.
I would just like to add that I do believe this does need to be done in some form or another. I just think after reviewing the budget over the weekend, I think we need to leave our options open to how we go about doing it.
And if I may very quickly, only because I forgot to say this at first, I also asked this group for 3 sets of references for 3 different municipalities that they had done work for, and they provided us 3 written references from 3 different municipalities, and to me, that is the best indicator of future work. That is another reason that I feel like this is the right company to go forward with. Thank you.
I would just like to add, I think my colleagues pretty much summed it up, but there is a dire need for reform in the licensing and inspections department. I see it firsthand every day from my work in real estate, developers stonewalled, homeowners having delays. We've seen it particularly at our council meetings the last month or so. Some residents that are here today, and I know there was an issue with a home that had a roof issue from the tornado that went through the hill section a few months back. And obviously, this isn't going to solve those problems overnight, but I think if many of these issues are identified and a more streamlined process is put in place, this will help the city move that department in the right direction. I've said this a number of times. Outside of potholes and road complaints, I get more calls about licensing and inspections than any other department, and it's just been atrocious. In order for this city to grow, we need to make the city more business friendly, and we need to take some of this burden off of the contractors and homeowners. So I'm glad that this will pass, and I hope we see some results. Roll call, please.
Mr. Duncan?
No.
Attorney Dempsey?
Yes.
Mr. Gahn?
Yes.
Mr. Rogan?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7E legally and lawfully adopted. If there's no further business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Meeting's adjourned.